Yeah, where is it?
It's over here. Follow me.
Hi, Tomaz.
Hi.
Well, before we start, I understand most of what all of this means, but and it's very profound for only a 20-minute session to see anything happen.
Yes, I just had one patient as well before I got onto this call, and I did another recording with her, and she had 45 minutes treatment, and there are definitely some very, very clear shifts and changes. But David, if I just summarize this case, the case M, we just
So Tomaz, when you say ECG, that's electrocardiogram, right? And
yes, it's a single lead electrocardiogram.
right.
So basically it records 300 heartbeats, and then it analyzes the different impulses and converts them into around 750 parameters that are linked to psycho-emotional health, cardio fitness, hormonal response, so the autonomic nervous system response. So how does the person respond to stress? what changes in terms of stress response,
Okay,
which is
right
very,
there.
very,
That is really important. So what's,
yes, exactly.
because when you see on note number 3, human frequency spectrum diagram, lowering the need to utilize hormonal resources such as cortisol to cope with stress.
Yeah.
And we saw the heartbeat on the chart really go into a deep relaxation below 60 beats a minute. And
Yeah.
and people should know that when you lie down, when a person normally lies down, it takes a long time for, without a tool like this, the Vortex bed, to reduce heart rate. If you're below 60, and this person was at 58,
Yeah.
59, so that's incredible to get to 59. That's a very deeply relaxed heart, because most humans are above 60. So they started from 65, I see, and they went to 59. And so when your heart is really relaxed, you don't need to over secrete these hormonal resources such as cortisol.
Yeah.
Which is really profound. That alone was so shocking to me to see that in 20 minutes. And so we're talking about using the magnetic recording of that NASA made of our sun through the Vortex bed. And these are the results we're seeing, people. These results are phenomenal. What I see here is so profound in just 20 minutes that I think this is probably one of the most incredible tools to use on the planet. Now, here's another question, because we just did an upgrade on the bed. So the bed comes with the 4 Vortex coils, which you can put under a mattress or under your couch. And we also add big magnets and also gems.
Yes.
So in this session, did you have the magnets?
In this session, because I did use, no, we just used the Vortex bed.
Okay, that's good to know. That's great to know, because that gives me a base.
Yeah.
Even without the magnets.
Yes.
And
I can confirm these results because I have got the Vortex bed and the coil. I'm waiting for the magnets. Shamim is looking after them, and I think I will get the magnets through Dr. Dyer. So, but I only have also got the Vortex bed, and the results are the same with this 2 other patients that I have screened in the meanwhile. So of course, there are other parameters that are different, but in essence, I can clearly say there is a definite reduction into the body's ability to cope with stress. So the neurohormonal resources, such as cortisol levels, are drastically reducing in each of the cases.
that's
So that's
incredible right
consistent.
there.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. These stress levels in North Americans and Europeans are so high in our economic world. In fact, I want to point out before we go to the next point. So to confirm this, I had 2 people come to my house and try my bed. And one of them's the owner of a big winery. It's a big organic winery owner. And he said, oh, I'll just try the bed for 15 minutes. So he lies on the bed. He was out cold for an hour. You couldn't wake the guy up. He was completely so deeply relaxed. And he, instead of just doing a 20-minute session, he was gone for an hour. And then the next night, his wife came by, and she was very hesitant. Again, this is a lot of stress, the business they're in. And she says, oh, I'll try it for 5 minutes. She went out for an hour, completely relaxed at the deepest levels. And on my own self, I've had the same experience where it put me into such a deep state of rest. I haven't actually felt anything like it for years. It kind of reminds me of when I was a little kid and I would just knock out and truly go into this deepest let go, stressless sleep.
And may I ask, what frequencies did you use?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was using Ark of the Covenant frequencies on my friend Stephen and his wife Ria, and I did the same ones on myself. I actually started to have visions and started to get into a dialogue with, the higher universe about the meaning of the Ark of the Covenant ratios. Now, ratios are even more advanced than frequencies, and ratios have to do with the balance of one frequency and a second and a third and so on. So ratios transcend frequencies, whereas the sound of the sun actually has myriad frequency blends within it. It's not a single point frequency.
Yep. Yeah.
Actually hundreds of different wavelengths. The way a sphere transmits is very sophisticated. So now when you go to number 4, self-healing potential, the body's ability to repair has improved ANS balance index.
Yeah.
A slight increase in the vital life force prana is seen in the reading. And this is important. When it says slight increase, it's actually really important. Actually, the guy is calling who was on the bed that we were talking about. But to see a slight increase in life force prana in one session is also phenomenal, because I wouldn't expect to see that at all in one session.
And I can confirm, even with my Ayurvedic treatment, with my shamanic approach that I take, and with the Theratim units that I have at home, it's very difficult to shift the oxygenate. I call it the cellular oxygenation. So basically the body's ability to utilize oxygen, which translates in my Ayurvedic terms as prana, the life force.
Right.
So that's very difficult to shift. And
Exactly. That's my thought too. This takes years to shift normally, even if a person is doing yogic pranayama exercises. You can see a shift, after a week, but you won't see a real shift for months.
Yeah.
So the fact that moves slightly is in 20 minutes is quite incredible. So next we go to histogram and scatterogram, both indicate a more balanced function of the ANS. What is the ANS? It's the
autonomic nervous system.
The autonomic nervous system is what controls organs, breathing, etc. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Right. Although this indicates also that the client may find it challenging to settle down and relax. Repeated exposure to treatment will allow the nervous system to adjust quicker in a more natural way. A balanced stress response will become second nature.
Okay, so basically what that means, let me just go to number 5. Yes. So basically what that really in essence means, this person, for her to experience this natural state of relaxation, the state of relaxation doesn't come naturally. It is almost like she runs 1,000 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, her body gets put into a space where there's a deep relaxation. And it's like, oh my God, what's actually going on? So there is initially a phase of adaptation that is required for the body to fall more naturally in that state. Mm-hmm. So it looks like we are reducing the stress levels, but initially the body is utilizing energy for this experience to happen. It doesn't come naturally.
I see exactly what you mean. These people are so hyper stressed out that to get them to slow down is almost impossible.
Yeah, and almost the slowing down process is causing stress for them at the same time. And that will require repeated exposure to the technology and to the treatment. And then it goes much quicker and they can go much deeper and much faster.
Okay, so moving on to the next point, number 6, neurohormonal matrix clearly shows a greater balance. Balanced activity of hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals, which is part of the endocrine system, all of the glands in the endocrine system. Describe the results from the testing on that.
Okay, so basically the neurohormonal matrix, what it indicates is that hormones such as hormones that help us getting to sleep, like melatonin, for example, and then regulation of thyroid function, thyroid hormones, all of them, because we are balancing the body's ability to cope with stress. Naturally, that axis that I described as the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis starts to function in a much more balanced and harmonious way. And this is a drastic shift from the pattern on the left to the pattern on the right. So there's much more green, there's much more, that means basically the body is able to respond to hormonal changes much quicker without causing any stress.
This is incredible. The very fact that you can see a change in hormonal balance in 20 minutes is also quite miraculous, I would say.
Yes. So, because as you can see on the diagram, there's much more an harmonious interaction. It went basically, if you think about it this way, at the beginning of the treatment, her system, especially the hormonal system, which is linked to the neurons communicating in the different parts of the brain. In particular, we are talking about hypothalamus. Basically, they worked only at 22%. So there was a compromised adaptability and connectivity to the body's ability to regulate hormones that are required at a particular given moment in time.
This could have a long-term improvement on mental health when you're talking about.
Yes, of course, yes. And also because it's the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis. So we know pituitary gland really, again, plays a major role also in sleep-waking cycles. So regulating the sleep cycles and our rhythms, our biorhythms, basically.
Right. Okay, moving on to number 7, the metabolic pyramid indicates an increase in the metabolic rate index. In my view, this represents increased cellular metabolism, Agni in Ayurveda, plus there is a greater balance between energy input and energy output after the session, also increased energy production. Can you talk about that one? Yes.
So that diagram, basically the number of bricks indicates how much, how high is the metabolic rate index. So basically what means is metabolism not to be just understood in terms of gastric fire, gastric metabolism, but we are really talking about energy conversion on a cellular level. So the diagram on the left has much less bricks, but you can see that there is energy in and energy out. So there's a stagnation. So in essence, there are more blue bricks than red bricks, which basically means the body produces more energy, but that energy is stagnant. It's stuck in the system. Whereas if you look at the diagram on the right, it is much more balanced. Not only has the energy conversion, energy production increased, but it also a balanced flow between the energy we produce and the energy we spend.
Right. See, what I want to point out to people, what's different about my bed system that I designed is there's 4 vortex coils that are 14-pointed star coils that are all in a single circuit. So we're spinning the chakras, we're spinning the glands in the endocrine system. And the glands in the endocrine system are the sexual glands, base of the spine, and then we go into the nervous system. Actually, a lot of your lymphatics are in the gut section, and then you move to your pancreas, you move to your adrenals, which are on top of the kidneys.
Yeah.
And then you come to heart function regulation, which is the thymus, and then you come to the thyroid gland in the neck, and then you come to the pituitary and pineal gland in the brain. So those are most of the glands in the endocrine system, and they correspond to the chakras. And by spinning energy, which is spinning at the speed of light, rather than just using a single point frequency, using sound, or some of the other bed systems out there use tiny, tiny little coils. So this is definitely a superior bed system. And of course, if you add the magnets and the gems to the circuit, which is the level 2 bed, you're going to see even more. So number 8, spectral mineral and hormonal ratio basically shows a greater balance between the various minerals in the body, reduced inflammation, and definitely reduction in cortisol levels. Of course, these measurements are not accurate, but they give a great baseline, which would help assess if further blood tests are needed. And so this is, again, really important, because when you're reducing inflammation, and inflammation can be a response to stress, it can be a response to physical trauma or injury. So if you've had a back injury or a knee injury or even a head injury, you're going to get inflammation.
Yeah.
So there's two kinds of stress there, and the cortisol comes in to respond to the stress. Can you talk a little bit about cortisol's response and purpose?
Okay, maybe let's just look at it from the perspective sympathetic, parasympathetic, and then the cortisol that comes in. So in a normal environment, the way of how our body copes with stress is, it's a balance between the fight and flight, rest and digest, and a balanced way of how the body utilizes cortisol, because we need a healthy amount of cortisol for us to actually keep going. Otherwise, if we are completely in rest and digest mode, we have no energy, we don't really feel like doing anything. So it is basically utilizing a balance between the three, which makes out a normal functioning, a normal healthy stress response. So in her case, there was an increase in the body needing to use excess hormonal resources to cope with the stress. So basically, sympathetic, parasympathetic wasn't enough. The minimal use of cortisol wasn't enough. Constant pushing, excess adrenal exhaustion, which of course leads to energy depletion. So, and in that case is, if you have a reduction in cortisol levels, coming back to the fact is that the body then is really able to think, okay, how can I optimize my resources? It's like the spinning, they're going around, running 1,000 miles an hour, the body comes down and the body starts to self-regulate, okay? Starts to self-regulate, thinking, oh, my cortisol levels have come down. I don't need to be in a fight and flight mode all the time. I can actually focus on the repair. And that is what then helps naturally to reduce the inflammatory index.
That's incredible the way you described it. That's beautiful. You know, I've talked to my dad, who's a psychologist, and of course got a master's degree in physiology. And we've had conversations about the 9 neurochemicals in the body. I really like the way you described that. So number 9, spectrum brainwave activity basically shows that the client had high delta waves in waking state, which is not good actually to have high delta waves, which is, the delta waves are the unconscious part of the brain. And when I say unconscious, it doesn't necessarily mean sloppy. It means, you know, if your delta waves are deep, you're either incredibly, it's like you're sleepwalking, basically.
Exactly. The way I describe it is, if delta waves are high in a waking state, you are sleepwalking. Exactly.
You're unconscious. You're walking around in the unconscious, and that could be a person who is severely sleep deprived, because their body's fighting to get rest and they won't let it get rest. And that sounds like our client based on your descriptions. And you indicated possible adrenal exhaustion, but after this session, although the delta waves are still high, there's an increase in beta and gamma. And what's interesting to me about that is, I've read studies, and these studies were done by His Holiness the Dalai Lama on Buddhist monks with scientists. And they found that when the monks are chanting and going into high focus states, their gamma goes way up. Yeah. They have exceptionally high gammas. And so when you get to the beta and the gamma part of the brain, that's brain focus activity. That's high focus. Like an athlete will have high beta gamma. So if this person, you know, is the very fact that their betas and gammas are improving means that because the brain only has, it basically has the same amount of energy and it displaces it among the 5 different brain waves.
Yes.
And which is the delta and the theta, which is theta is the frequency of Earth is theta. And theta is where the rapid eye movement phase occurs in dreaming, where you're having visual based dreams. But you can also be in upper theta, which is the fundamental frequency of the Tesla Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz, is upper theta. And then you get into alpha, which is the beginning of coherence, the coherent mind.
Yes.
And then beta and gamma are definitely high focus. So
Yes.
this is incredible just to see this in 20 minutes. Like
But
really,
what is also interesting for me is I've got it here in front of me. You can see that although the delta waves are still high, but there is quite a drastic improvement. It has come down from 77% to 47%. So
well,
there is a significant reduction into the delta wave activity, which then also translates as an increase and activation of all the other brain waves.
yeah, because it has to move the energy somewhere else. Exactly. So
That's right.
because a delta wave is a big wave. If you actually measured its wavelength, it's huge because delta is 0 to 4 waves a second. So you can imagine like the wavelength of Earth is really 7.5 hertz at the equator, 7.83 hertz a little bit further north of the equator or south of the equator, which is where Tesla measured it. But I want you to see that as a size of a wavelength. So when a person's in delta, they're synchronizing with a wave that's bigger than the circumference of the Earth. It's much bigger. So it's got a lot of punch. It's got a lot of power. And delta waves can cause damage if a person's mind is not balanced and their mind and emotional self are not trained. If a person has a psychotic episode with high deltas, they can do a lot of damage. So this is great news to see that energy shifting. So how much shifted out of delta? What percentage?
We went from 77 down to 47. So basically it's 27, 30% reduction.
30% reduction in the delta.
Yeah.
Which moved it to the beta and gamma, which is what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's incredibly significant for people who are disembodied. Some people, again, who push themselves so hard and they're not sleeping deep enough. Again, I noticed with different frequencies on the bed system, incredibly deep sleep in many participants at my house. So number 10, map of brain electrical activity shows a clear improvement in psycho-emotional state plus reduction in brain fog, plus movement towards a greater balance between the neurotransmitters in the brain. How do you see the neurotransmitter activity in the brain in the test?
It's basically this diagram. So this diagram basically shows that a lot of them are low. All of the neurotransmitters, epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, and so on, they are in the lower range, in the blue range. And in particular, that can indicate lack of motivation. In her case, it indicated possibly mood swings. I wouldn't go as far as saying depression, but when you look at then after treatment, the markers have shifted more into the green, which means a more balanced distribution and activation of the neurotransmitters in the brain. So, which means it shifts moods. It helps again with the ability to really being able to cope with day-to-day life, to find their joy in life better again, and not to fall into that psycho-emotional trap where one may feel like we are going into a loop. What is the purpose of living and all of that? It helps shifting them out. And that's what I always say to my patients. raising your frequencies automatically and naturally will put you into space to look at life in a different perspective. So naturally to feel inspired to do things again, maybe to look at what are passionate areas in your life and so on. So I guess what I'm saying is there is a definite increase in all of the neurotransmitters in the brain towards the green, which indicates a greater balanced distribution of the neurotransmitters and activation of them in the brain. So going from a more depressed, subdued, tired, lack of motivation to inspiration, indication of some energy coming back, some zest for life coming back. It's just igniting that spark again. Oh wow, actually I can do something with my life, or feeling inspired, feeling creative.
I'd really like to see the bed system used on Alzheimer's patients and dementia patients, and also autistic as well. And you know that you could definitely start to see an improvement over time. I mean, I'm amazed to see any results in 20 minutes, but I suspect that if somebody did this for 3 months on a regular basis, then you would really see, you know, a serious improvement. I also want to point out that I've looked at studies in the past comparing a sound healing session, and we did these tests in Sedona, Arizona years ago with the GDV Aura camera. And with sound healing sessions, the person will return to their original stressed out state very quickly within the space of an hour. But we found when we tested people, even the next day, their aura still showed an improvement of pranic life force energy coming out of the various, you know, energy centers in the body. And that's something you don't see with just sound healing. It's because sound magnetic waves are so deep, they're actually exciting the crystals in the bone and in the bone marrow, which is, you know, where the blood cells are produced. Is it the white blood cells or red blood cells produced in the bone marrow?
It's the
It's
white blood.
it's
Yes.
white, yeah.
So
So that's that. Again, I'd like to see it in those three categories because there's not a lot doctors can do with dementia and Alzheimer's, and also, you know, there there's very little success, you know, with traditional medicine in those areas, and I'd like to see, you know, some results from people if you can get anybody in your clinic with that. So number 11, fractal portrait for biorhythm shows a 50% improvement in biorhythm coherence, 50% improvement. This marker is also an indication of improved immune function. We can also see in the diagram a significant reduction in biological age, which shows a general state of well-being in the patient. Oh my God. This could you know, reduce the cause of aging of cells, you know, in the long run.
Absolutely. And the more frequent one is, of course, exposed to this treatment, the more the body is able to maintain it. So, and I like to just come back to what you have mentioned before. What I see is with this treatment is that the body keeps adjusting and keeps changing at least for another 12 to 18 hours. So that means there are continuous improvement after 12 to 18 hours of the session. And those who have the ability to utilize the Vortex bed at home, and I've got one of the patients, which are actually my patients, and I organized for them a Vortex bed. They have got a mantra coil at home and a Vortex bed at home. She has basically minute fractures of the bone, so osteoporosis, and I've put her onto I'm changing basically her program pretty much on a weekly basis, but the essence is the bone healing frequencies that are part of your the rifle frequencies that are on the program, they have been a stable part. So I'm trying to assess after 3 months which will be up at the end of January, using the Sereda technology, the Vortex Bed, and the mantra coil, to see when she goes back for the next scan if there is any improvement in the bone health.
With osteoporosis, Tomaz, I highly recommend a combination of heat. So, the best way to get heat is actually taking, massage stone pebbles and getting them hot in boiling water and putting them in a cloth and placing them on the spine to really heat up the bone.
So
So-
what I have done with her is I've used for a substantial amount the sound of the sun, because the sound of the sun generates the heat. So I start off with the sound of the sun, and I have to look at the other programs, but then the core of it is going back to the bone frequencies and finishing off again with the sound of the sun.
Right. I mean, frequency is heat. Frequency transmits electromagnetic energy to the body. And when the body resists the flow of that energy, it generates heat. Even though this heat is very subtle, it's very deeply penetrating. So there's always infrared coming off of the coils, just so you know. So there's an infrared value there. I mean, it's not like a sauna. It's not heat at that level, but there is infrared energy there for sure. So coming to number 12, functional state indices show a clear improvement in all the markers: cardio adaptation, stress response, neurohormonal regulation, and psycho-emotional state. Also, this indicates that the patient is 60% healthier than most of the people of the same age.
Yes.
Well,
That's correct. So if you look at the functional state in the index, so basically when I look at the diagram on the left, what I see is the weakest link. Here is number D, which is the psycho-emotional state. That's the weakest link in their analysis. So that means for me, her health and well-being is very much directed by a psycho-emotional state.
Mhm.
So that means for me as a practitioner is, okay, I need to pay much more attention to that than actually paying attention to cardio fitness, hormonal regulation. By looking after the psycho-emotional state, everything else will improve.
Right.
So after 20 minutes of the sound of the sun, you can see that basically the psycho-emotional state has gone from 23% up to 53%, which has
we did a study years ago with the GDV Aura camera in Russia, where they played the sound of the sun to people and looked at their aura, which is really confirming in this study. And what they found, for some reason, the sun is the heart chakra. They found that all the energy moved from the various chakras and increased the amplitude of the heart and made the heart chakra really huge. So again, the heart is the center of everything. It's the center of everything because it's,
yeah. If I think about that, and what just comes to my mind as you mentioned it, interestingly, is that if I, for example, some of the meditation practices I do is basically going through the heart chakra, which means connecting with the energy of solar logos, okay? And that basically means is we take, how shall I put it? I always hesitate to define a person's state of well-being through the chakras, because the chakras are a denser energetic frequency that actually helps people or actually prevents people from moving out of their own patterns, their own belief systems. But when you use the sound of the sun, when you work through the heart chakra, and here also I bring in, and this is my personal exploration working with your frequencies, I bring in particular the frequencies of the pyramid. Immediately and also the Stargate frequencies. So I use those two. which take you into a cosmic space, a cosmic connection, connecting with the essence of the solar system, which sits in the center of our heart, automatically regulates everything. So rather than
Automatically, say that. I like to say that 3 times. Automatically regulates everything. So once the heart is functioning properly, everything else flows automatically from there. Is that what you're saying?
yes, and also I would like to point out here, we all very often in the esoteric spiritual community, we think about visualizing the light coming in from above or the energy from, no, we are complete in the way of how we are. If we tap into the core of our heart, everything is there. We don't need any external resources to, rather than thinking, let the energy come in from the crown of your head, think about the heart and connect with your heart to the cosmic energy, which then automatically shifts your frequencies and shifts your awareness. I don't know, does that make sense?
Well, it makes some perfect sense. See, I believe the integral healing state has to integrate, and it's almost like reconnecting the heart to all the other chakras. So we
Precisely.
communicate from the heart chakra, we see from the heart chakra,
Yeah.
we intuit from the heart chakra, and it's the same with the sexual healing state. Is moving away from non-loving based sexuality and connecting the sex chakra to the heart chakra, and then connecting the adrenal and the belly center is really, I mean, some people call, some literally physiologists call the gut the second brain, because
Exactly.
the gut is where we intuit, we feel nervous about something, we don't know why, we're feeling it in the gut. And so the gut center, again, when it's not connected to the heart, it's almost like, if you can imagine a light cord going from your heart to each one of the other energy centers. And it's like a reconnection. Whereas some people, a lot of people actually in our culture, and in fact, you can see this in the news today with COVID, the porn websites crashed. And that's because people are not, their sexuality is not connected to their heart. And so they're attracted to stuff that doesn't have any heart-based feeling to it at all, which is really just an adrenal rush release, right? So
Yes.
when a person is whole, all the chakras come back to the heart. They're all integrated together, and that's when you feel real serious bliss in your being.
And also it makes us not rely on any external energies and frequencies. It's all there within our heart, because if you think about the essence of who we are is light, is
Right.
the energy of light vibrating at the highest frequencies. So if we connect to that light frequency through the heart, that's all what is required. That's all what is
And
needed.
the heart is the sun, and the sun, gives us our real light. And then we are, if you look on an infrared, video camera and you get near somebody's chest, it'll blind you, because the sensor in the infrared camera will go crazy because there's so much light coming out of the heart. Well, that heart started from our sun. It keeps our bodies warm, and our bodies are emitting this infrared light, which actually originated from our star. So and it radiates back out. Actually, the light that leaves the heart chakra goes out into the universe at the speed of light, like all light does. It's just,
Exactly.
it's actually transmitting at the speed of light, the actual physical. I'm talking about the physical light. And then when you get more refined, you get into the spiritual light. So when we come to point 13, it's really important for chiropractors to understand that you may want to, when you read this, the results of number 13, you may want to consider putting people on my Vortex beds before you make an adjustment of their spine, of their vertebrae. So it says vertebrae.
Absolute. I can absolutely confirm that, because what I do with 2 of my patients, I work with a physical therapist who does manual therapies, and basically she has developed her own technique of movement therapy. And I work with her that whenever two of her patients are also my patients. So when they have a session with her, they come to me first, they get onto the vortex bed for 20 minutes, and then they are going down to work with the physical movement aspect of it. And the amazing bit is also with this patient that I'm talking about who has got the vortex bed at home, and she is lying on the bed on a regular basis, at least once or twice a day, her complete musculoskeletal tension has improved. So the mobility, when I call the friend of mine, Ivana, when Ivana works with her, is just incredible. So she is a trained movement therapist. She uses Pilates and the machines, the Pilates machines, to basically for rehabilitation. And she says her movement ability is just incredible. And what has also happened since
incredible after she does the vortex bed before the Pilates.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So this means for chiropractors, even serious deep tissue massage, you would a deep tissue massage therapist should have their clients do 20 minutes on the bed first to really open up this part of the body. So number 13 says vertebrae and teeth diagram shows less areas under stress, greater balance in the various sections of the spine, which means that a natural alignment has taken place already. And so again, that's, you know, I can't place enough importance that chiropractors, deep tissue workers, and now you're saying even Pilates workers could benefit from having this in their practice.
And also when you look at the diagram, you can see the spine, but also the cerebral spinal fluid. There's an increase in the cerebral spinal fluid, which basically helps to work on the particular areas of the spine, basically balances those particular areas of the spine that are under stress. So those vertebrae that have been injured, that have been compromised or compressed or stressed, basically have come back into more harmonious balanced state. And then of course, if you link that to organs and organ systems, because each vertebra of the spine can be linked to a particular part of the body, that basically indicates not just a musculoskeletal alignment, but it also means, and in her case, here it is the small intestine. If you look at the diagram, that basically an improvement in small intestine function, which basically means small intestine comes back to absorption of nutrients.
Right.
So
that's incredible. It all makes sense once you get the entire, you know, two nervous systems fired up. You know, you're going to see everything start to function better. Everything. And number 14 says the dogec diagram shows a greater balance towards the various elements, in particular vata, related to colon and nervous system neuronal communication.
Yes. So basically, from an Ayurvedic perspective, we always look at the balance between the 5 elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth. So going back to the very first diagram, almost, we can see that the nervous system is under stress, that the body is finding difficulties to relax. And that is indicated in an increase in the energy of vata. Vata, Ayurvedically, has to do with processes of movement, communication, transportation. So blood circulation, cellular communication, and also neuronal activity. So increasing the firing of the neurons in the brain in a more balanced and harmonious way. So besides of that, vata then also is linked to bone health. It is linked to anxiety, to insomnia, constipation, because it's the element of air. Air dries out the body. So what was fascinating for me to see were 2 aspects in this diagram. Number 1, vata has come down. So think about it that way. what happens when the wind blows into fire naturally? So when the wind blows into fire, it increases the fire, which
Right.
means when Vata is high through irregular lifestyle, nutrition, and God knows what, it naturally increases the fire element, which can translate into inflammatory processes. So after 20 minutes of being on the bed, the Vata has come down, which has brought Pitta back into balance, which means a reduced um, a reduced function of the dosha of Pitta. At the same time, we see that the body is able to gain some strength again in the kapha aspect. In that diagram, basically kapha was quite low, which can indicate depletion, tissue depletion. That
Mhm.
means basically, even though the person may eat the best nutritional food, but the body is not able to translate that into healthy tissue formation. So the Vata as the key element, the key regulator, our central nervous system, our stress response that comes back into balance, it reduces inflammatory processes. Hence, also, it enhances the cellular metabolic activity. When the cellular metabolic activity is more in balance, all the nutrients that we feed in the body actually do their own job. They go and nurture the organs, the organ systems. We build a strengthy, healthy physiology.
See, most of these nutrients need an electric stimulation, and that's what the coils are doing. So if you take potassium, magnesium, a little bit of lithium, sodium, and you take full electrolytes with hot water before treatment, I think we'll see even more improvement in extreme cases. So number 15, the remaining diagrams basically are self-explanatory.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what are there sees, what we see there is, let me just get to my notes here. So basically, one of the readings was on the meridians from a Chinese perspective. And what I find fascinating is that many of the readings have gone from either stagnant or under stress, which is indicated by the color of purple and blue or yellow and red, into green. In particular, you can see that the lungs in the diagram are in the purple, which to me indicates possible shallow breathing. The body is not getting the oxygen that is required. But after the treatment, it has gone completely into the green area. We can see the gallbladder was working very hard under stress to basically do its function. That has gone into green. Then also we can see a balanced pancreatic activity. So if you look at it, all of the organs have really responded extremely well from those 20 minutes. Now, what that indicates to me as a practitioner is also that this patient is fairly healthy. However, she's so much, her health is so much governed by the stresses and the inability for her to relax that has pushed the entire organ system out of sync. So by addressing the cause, reducing the stress on the central nervous system, getting her into balanced state, we can see a drastic improvement in all the different organs and organ systems, from lymph system to the liver. We can see that the liver has gone and started to calm down rather than being so stressed. Oh my God, I need to work so hard to get rid of all this toxic waste. It have started to relax because the lymph system has kicked in. The lymph has started to do its job, transported all the rubbish, and actually directed it towards the excretory organs. From there, they have gone, they have found a pathway out of the system. If you look at the bioenergy field reading, I said there in the last section that the other elements are pretty much self-explanatory. But if you look at the chakras again, on the diagram,
Number
what
20, are you talking about number 20?
we are talking about 20, yes.
Okay.
So 20 has got two components. It has got the auric field.
Mhm.
So you can see that the energy field has gone from 38% to 63%.
Wow, that's
That
incredible.
that indicates to me there is a greater protection because your own energy field is become so strong that there is less likely the chances for external influences. And here we talk about radiation, electromagnetic, electro smog, for example. It has a less likelier impact on your energetic system. So it's almost like you have built your own protective shield.
I see exactly what you're saying. When you increase your energy, your bioelectric field, you're not as vulnerable to the attacks of the, EMF pollution coming from the microwave tower. So let's go through each chakra, Tomas. So the root chakra went from 36% to 61%.
Yes.
And
So,
yeah.
Keep going.
And then the belly center chakra went from 31% to 42%. These are huge improvements, people. And again, we saw this with our wands with aura camera before and after with 3 different patients consistently. And again, we tested them 1 and 2 days later, and they were still higher than their baseline 3 days later. So that would tell me if somebody needs serious treatment and they can't afford a device, they should come to a practitioner once every 3 days. So third chakra, which is adrenal function, and when I say adrenal, I mean adrenal is doer motivator. It has both a positive and a negative because we tend to overdo our adrenals in modern civilization because people are so stressed out. So their adrenal function went from 37% to 61%, which is almost double. And the heart went from 68% to 89. And to see that in 20 minutes is phenomenal. And when you say heart, it also increases your capacity to feel love. When you increase your heart energy field function, it's not only circulatory, it's not only physiological, it's emotional potential.
But then
And
also on the heart here, I always look also at the heart reading. For me, if there is a very high balance, if there is the balance of the heart chakra is balanced in a high frequency, that also means immunity, because we talk about the current situation. This is why it's so important that we stay out of fear. Whatever goes on around us, stay out of fear, because fear shuts down your heart chakra, which reduces your immunity. So I believe, and maybe you have got your own view on that, I believe no vitamin minerals in essence can replace your happiness factor in relation to immunity. Your factor where you feel like stay out of fear, feel happy, feel content, feel at peace with yourself is the best immunomodulating energy that you can actually give to yourself, much better than a lot of the remedies that you may take.
I just read a study, Tomas, on the physiological damaging effects of fear, and there's duly noted. Don't think that the fear of what's being portrayed in the media is not affecting you. I mean, it might not be, but what Tomaz is saying is very profound, because these studies have proven that heart brain function is depleted by absorbing fear, and a certain amount of fear is good. Like, if you're, let's say you're not making enough money in your life and you're afraid, well, that gets your adrenals going, and then you got to get your doer motivator self together and get to work. So otherwise,
right, yeah.
So there's reasons for, there's healthy fear and there's non-healthy fear. a tiny bit of fear is good just to get everything going. And then when you come to throat chakra, communication chakra, we go from 24% to 46, which is again almost double. You know, that's almost double. And when we come to chakra 6, which is pineal pituitary gland, you're looking at the inner eye. The inner eye has an incredible function for creativity and insighting. In fact, most of us in our various professions in life, including children in their learning stages, the ability to see clearly in the mind's eye. Like when you close your eyes, can you see an orange with moisture droplets on it right now? Like I can actually see that as a picture, and then I can switch it off. So the ability to see an index vision in the mind is the fact that we doubled here, we more than doubled from 21 to 43% here, means that basic function in the human psyche is so important for learning, for doing your job, for problem solving in your mind before you actually create a task to solve a problem, is to be able to see the solution in the mind before you go and solve it. And this area, a lot of people can't do it. They just can't see things in their mind's eye. So this is an incredible area for improvement. And the seventh chakra, it's very interesting in the seventh chakra because we had access to this really ultra low level light camera experiment was done at Princeton University. And this guy, Dr. Roger Nelson, who heads the Global Consciousness Project there, presented this photograph to me. And we could see this meditator in the dark, very grainy photograph, that the crown chakra was a vortex funnel. So it's coming out like this. So the chakras literally, even in Far Eastern systems, are wheels. They spin, right? They spin. So that's why, again, my bed system was designed this way intentionally, which is to spin, you know, 4 major centers, which covers all of the 7 centers in the nervous system. And so there, by spinning the energy, you're really getting it moving, and we're spinning at the speed of light. So when electricity moves through the copper wire in the coils, it's going about 75% the speed of light approximately. But the signal, the magnetic field signal just above the surface of the copper is spinning at the speed of light. So you can't imagine what that looks like. If you could see it, you're spinning light all throughout the body, which is why we're getting these phenomenal results. I mean, I highly recommend this for everybody, of course, that this should be a standard device in everybody's house, because you can get results like this if you're exercising twice a day.
Absolutely. I mean, just
we
to
lose that ability as we get older because we're doing all these jobs, we're driving in our cars, and we can't exercise physically twice a day the way we did when we were kids. We just can't do it.
David, would you just allow me briefly to summarize from a health perspective the analysis of the chakras, just in 2-3 sentences?
Okay.
In essence, what I see here is we have got what I mentioned before. There's a greater harmonious flow, a greater balance between the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal gland. Because if you look at the various chakras and its related endocrine functions, you can see an increase, a balance in the hormonal functions. At the same time, you can see greater self-awareness, the body's ability to recognize inside what actually is needed. What do I need to do? How does certain food that I eat basically impact my well-being? How is my body's ability to repair? And that's where the connection to the higher self comes in. So from the chakra perspective, greater connection to the higher self, improve hormonal function, and in return, greater self-awareness to become aware what works, what doesn't work, and become aware of maybe certain foods that I can avoid, certain lifestyle practices that I should avoid, which is really sort of a summary of the chakras and the chakra system.
Thank you so much, Tomaz, for doing this study and bringing this, to us. Okay, I want to point out this is an important point because throughout the years of doing this, and I've been building these types of devices and technology now since 2006 and 7, and that's a long time. And I want to point out that there's some respondents, you will see the improvement in the data in the study, but that person doesn't cognitively recognize that there's been an improvement yet. It's very sensitive people who participate cognitively in saying, yes, I feel this, I feel this. I've had people say, I can't feel anything, but I said, you know what, if you look at the report, you're getting a lot better. So just keep at it. And so I want to point that out, because don't think that you're going to do this one time and your whole life is going to change.
No.
This is like having a stairmaster in your house, a frequency stairmaster in your house. Like, you got to do it. You got to do it 3 times a week. If you want to get results, you got to do something over and over and over again. And eventually, the people who can't cognitively sense it right away, eventually they feel it. They go, yeah, now I'm feeling it. Now I'm feeling it. And I've had people, even with my jewelry, like my frequency treated necklaces, or even my bracelet is frequency treated, and the pendants is I've had people say, oh, they can't feel anything, and then they lose their pendant and they go, oh my God, now I can feel what it was doing. I got to get another one. See, and so, because energy work is usually works on the subtle level, right? And those subtleties give us the best qualities of human perception and experience. It's not drastic things like taking taking a drug or something like that. Like, I can feel it at an incredible level. As soon as I turn on one of my coils, I lie on the bed, my whole nervous system can feel the entire thing. But
Yes.
what I'm saying is there's people who can't, and they think, oh, is there anything happening here? And
Yeah.
that's why I suggest for people who are less sensitive to use the big magnets. So you only need 4 good magnets in your coils, because then you'll hear and feel the vibrations a little bit when you lay on the bed, and you'll go, oh yeah, something's happening, because I can feel the vibrations. But you don't. In this study, there were no magnets, and that's important, because you don't feel anything physically when you lay on it, but these changes are occurring. Thank you very much, Tomaz. And
Thank you, David.
also, I highly recommend on the 21st, because of the Jupiter Saturn union, of doing those 2 planet frequencies for at least 3 days before and during and after the event, because there's a real gift there. And the fact that it's lining up to the winter solstice is remarkable. The fact that this is happening on the winter solstice with Jupiter and Saturn. And if you look in Dante's system on Jupiter and Saturn, you'll see his experiences of those 2 great spheres of enlightenment. But let's set up another time to go over that, because I'm also designing new frequencies right now, Tomaz. And
Thank you so much, David.
so we'll do that separately. Thank you. Have a great day. I got to run into my little Astoria in the house.
Hello, my name is Thomas. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I have got a clinic in central London. I have been working with frequency medicine for a very long time in different shapes and forms and ways. And I've been using David Sereda's frequencies and technology for a while now, and also on my patients. And even prior to using David Sereda's frequencies, I was always interested in finding one way of measuring the results, the impact that frequencies have on someone's physiology. So I think about 10 years ago, I stumbled across the so-called Heart Quest, which is basically heart rate variability screening unit. It can be compared to a single lead electrocardiogram, and that records about 300 heartbeats, and then it analyzes the impulses in between each heartbeat, and translates those impulses into data. That data that is linked to your cardio fitness, to your psycho-emotional well-being, to your autonomic stress response, but also to your hormonal regulation. So, of course, because I have used this way of measuring and getting some objective data on the impact of my treatments, of course, I was very, very curious to use it with the Sereda technologies, a light stream technology, but also, and of course, using it with the David Sereda frequencies. And this is where I find it extremely fascinating, and I'm really planning to dive deeper into the understanding and exploring more with David Sereda's frequencies and with the technology, and getting a comparison to how health and well-being basically of my patients improves. And I use the heart quest to measure that. It's basically this device.
Right. So it's very compact.
It's very small, very compact. And then there is a USB cord that is attached to the computer, and the computer software is extremely complex. So that goes into the computer. Those clips are being attached upon the wrists.
Right.
So
it's a biofeedback device.
Yeah, on the radial artery.
Right.
So it picks up the pulse, and then it starts recording the pulse rate and starts to analyze the data at
From
the end
pulse.
of it. So it takes about 3 minutes recording it. And yes.
Hi, this is David Sereda from DavidSereda.co. Our new product, the 4-panel Vortex Energy Healing Bed, has been in development for the past 3 years, and finally, we can offer it to you on the website. It is perfect to use in tandem with your Lightstream wand at the same time, running the bed on one speaker route and the wand on the other. Everything in our universe is spinning vortex funnels of energy, from human DNA to plants to seashells to the spirals and galaxies. That is why we use the 4-panel Vortex Energy System. Studies done with ultra-low-level light video cameras have shown the chakra or energy centers of the body to be spinning vortex funnel energy systems that draw upon energy fields all around us while they are spinning. That is why we want to enhance the spinning of the chakra system. That is why I developed the 4 flat panel Vortex Coils in a bed system that spins our energy fields. The reason we use all natural materials, considering everything is made of vibrations at the quantum level, when a magnetic field travels through a plastic mat or a mat made of low quality materials such as rubber, it carries those toxic vibrations into the nervous system. The connections are simple. The bed speaker wires connect positive red and negative black to the amp speaker out. The iPad or computer audio out connects from mini to double RCAs at the back of the amp. Going into your Windows or iTunes media player, you can access any frequency you want, press play on any frequency, and turn the volume all the way up or down, controlling both levels on your iPad or your amplifier volume switch, and the coils become active. We can measure the magnetic field up to 6,000 milligauss with a Gauss meter, or 6 full Gauss, giving us a powerful and effective healing energy field. Crystal, do you want to get up and actually put the blanket on top? You want to use a nice thin folded up blanket or thin mattress to go on top of your your vortex energy biomat. And now she's going to put her head where the head chakra coil is, and all the other ones are going to line up perfectly. So you can still hear those magnets spinning under there. So now Crystal is in the field, and we're actually spinning the energy in her body. So we're going to go to our magnetic field tester over here, and we're going to see on the camera our magnetic field is extending way beyond her body, way beyond it. If we go all the way down to the level of the body, the meter is peaking near the end of the field. So up by the head, we can see the activity of the meter. While there are 7 major energy centers in the body, the endocrine gland system has 4 major centers. 1, the head contains the pituitary and pineal glands. 2, the neck and upper chest have the thyroid and the thymus gland. 3, the upper belly center has the adrenals and the pancreas. 4, the sexual organ center is near the base of the spine. The 4 coils each span 9 inches in diameter, and the fields they radiate spin throughout the entire body and the auric energy field at the speed of light and beyond. Now, that are going through her chakras. And so professional treatment centers and practitioners can get one of these beds, and you can use it in tandem with your wand, and you can power your wand on one channel on your amplifier and the bed on the other.
Before you lay your mat down over the Lightstream biomat, it's important to put some markers down alongside the bed. And this way you'll know precisely where to place your head, and all other chakras will be aligned. I'd like to put a marker down firstly for the 6th chakra.
It is also very important to use a healing bed or mattress that is made of cotton, like a futon, or tree rubber latex bed to place on top of the 4-panel coils. Using a mattress or blanket is necessary because you don't want to put a lot of weight on top of the coils that may cause coil distortion or damage.
Hey, Daddy, you want to see our secret spot?
Yeah, where is it?